Direct from South Beach, this is The Live Wire.
Hi everyone, I'm Scott Henkus with The Live Wire, and I'm here today with photographer and writer Bill Wisser. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Bill has a degree in history from the University of California, Berkeley, correct?
Correct.
And he's been a journalist, writer, and photographer since about 1974, correct?
Correct.
And what he has done is he did this massive undertaking, which you focused pretty much all your talents in all the three areas, and came up with a great book, the definitive book actually, on South Beach, which I have with me here, which is available next door at Books and Books.
But elsewhere throughout the country at Barnes & Noble and Borders and your neighborhood bookstores.
Then you can find it everywhere if they're in those places. Every city has one of those.
Right.
This book, though, is amazing because he's managed to really capture everything that South Beach is about. You got all from the flash, the trash, the glitz, the glamour, but also the really human element, the architecture, everything. How did this project come about?
Well, I was raving about South Beach after I moved here. It was just such a great place and such an interesting story. And a friend of mine who'd done about 100 books and heard me raving about it said, you should do a book. And I said, yeah, you know, you're right, I should. So that was the genesis of the project, and it was the most fun I've ever had professionally in my life.
After reading, I noticed that you've done a lot of research. You seem to have talked to a lot of people. Besides interviews, what other sort of research did you do for the book?
Well, we did a lot of library work, and we spent a lot of time in the Florida Room of the main library downtown, and also the library here in Miami Beach. That was very important. I mean, we found things like the old yearly architectural annuals that were put out by the local chapter of the American Institute of Architects back in the late 30s, and it's fascinating because all the buildings that you see here on Lincoln Road and Washington Avenue and the neighborhood and the Ocean Drive and so on are all in the book and in their original state with beautiful photographs, and it also lists the architects and the subcontractors on the job. And you notice, for example, fascinating details like many of the original Art Deco and streamlined modern buildings here in South Beach had solar power back in the 30s.
You're kidding?
No. This is actually in the architecture chapter, but I found that most of them had solar hot water heaters. And, you know, here in the Sunshine State, it really makes sense to go solar. It's a very clean and efficient way of heating your water. It saves us from burning dirty fossil fuel or dangerous radioactive waste-producing electricity from, you know, power plants. And they were doing it 60 years ago. And what is also interesting, of course, is that none of these buildings, and I live in a 1940 building myself, none of these buildings that originally had it still have it, that it hasn't been maintained, and now everyone, you know, burns electricity to heat their water. But this was a very modern and advanced community. So, you know, that kind of synergy that I got from looking for something else and finding details like that was very exciting to me.
You seem to have really fallen in love with the place here. Apparently, are you going to keep this your home forever?
Exactly. I live in a 1940, I don't know, forever is a long time, but I love it here. I live in a 1940 Art Deco building designed by Elmery Dixon, who was one of the great architects here, and it's just a pleasure to live here. And I'm a native New Yorker, and I love New York, but the lifestyle here is so great. I mean, look at the weather. It's February, and we just walked here from your office and from my house. We're all within a few blocks of each other. We can run our errands on our bicycle or on foot instead of having to, I don't know, ride the subway. It's a very nice place to live, and of course there's the beach.
Exactly. That's one of the things that we were talking about when we've talked before, is that makes this place so unique, is that it is going back to that whole little village mentality where people just walk around and bike, and it's a community. I like what you said yesterday. This place is little itty bitty tiny, like a stamp on a mosquito's letter, but for some reason everyone is just focusing on this place.
Yeah, it is extraordinary. South Beach, for those who've never been here, is an extremely small place. It is a neighborhood that's about a mile or possibly a mile and a half square. And yet, so potent is its image that it's really become what people think of when they say Miami. All over the world say Miami, and people visualize in their mind the wonderful Art Deco buildings that we photographed. And I think the reason for this is not just the spectacular architecture, but the fact that it is, and you alluded to this a moment ago, it is a village. Remember that 20 years ago, and I of course tell the story in the book, 20 years ago this was a festering slum in the sun. It was a mess, and it was kind of a ghetto for old people, sick people, mentally ill people, and immigrants, many of whom were criminals. So it was a dangerous and decaying kind of on the skids neighborhood, and the political and economic elite didn't see any potential here and wanted to basically knock it down and build high-rises. They didn't know even what the word Art Deco meant. I think I told you that story.